Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video I'll be taking a look at some of the changes that happened with our Azura traits recently. In this video I want to talk about how these traits will affect you, if these traits are going to be good to stack or you might want to try to avoid them. It seems that Blizzard is continuing to balance a lot of these traits, and in this video, especially for rogues, they do try to address triple stack in certain traits. So I'll give you guys my opinions on what is looking good, what isn't looking good, and how this will affect you for both PvP as well as PvE. The first trait that took to the chopping block was Sharpened Blades for both Assassination and Subtlety. They reduced the damage of this trait by flat 30%, but it is unchanged by itself in PvP. Also, the benefit of having multiple copies of this trait is also reduced. Now, I don't know the severity of this reduction, as it is just a blue post, and I wish Blizzard was a little bit more detailed in what they meant by reduced. Do they mean that, let's say at 3 stacks it is the most reduced, so then you should only double it up, or maybe this triple stacking still good, but it's just not quite as powerful as it was? But overall, they reduced it by 30% flat. So having this one single trait of Sharpened Blades, I feel like especially for Subtlety, is going to be pretty big. Sharpened Blades actually was a trait that was extremely strong when it was triple stacked, but on its own it wasn't that great. Again, this trait has been not changed for PvP, so if you're someone who's playing PvP as Subtlety or Assassination with Sharpened Blades, it shouldn't be that bad. Although if you were double stacking and triple stacking Sharpened Blades, I would recommend you guys to look into another trait. A lot of the traits that we have for rogues increase the damage of our abilities, so those that don't inherently increase the damage of those abilities are getting buffed. For Assassination, the trait of Poisoned Wire is getting increased, critical strike increased by 50%. Now, I always found those traits a little bit weird because the way that they're read on tooltip has always been confusing, and you guys tell me in the comments below if I'm the only one with this. But with Poisoned Wire, it says the crit rate of an ability is increased by like 1,700 something instead of like by a flat 50%. I'm really hoping that this, of course, will be redefined later in the tooltips to maybe say that Yoga Road increases the damage of your next mutilate by 25%, 30%, 40%, or something along those lines, kind of like maybe a percentage chance combined together with your percent that you already have on your character. Something more of a normalized version of the tooltip, just so it's not confusing to the player. It is very difficult for me to say that this trait is going to be played a lot, but maybe with a very low crit build, maybe at early on, it doesn't seem as bad, although I don't really know at higher end game. I'm not sure how this trait will work, so of course simming is going to be the best way for us to know in the future. Another trait that also doesn't inherently increase the damage of your abilities is Brigand's Blitz for Outlaw. Haste increased by 50%. Now, the haste increase for Brigand's Blitz might actually be worth, even though haste trait is probably one of the worst traits for the spec. We do want to get haste to our spec of Outlaw, at least about 1,000 points into it, where your percent chance is between 14 and 15, but after that it becomes less viable. My question is, with the Brigand's Blitz having increased haste, I wonder if that'll make the trait actually better. It'll kind of feel like a mini Bloodlust. Whether your party is using Bloodlust or not, more haste does mean more aura attack swing, so it won't really be a question of energy regen. So the extra haste that is getting increased by 50% could finally make this trait not completely garbage, which I think is what Blizzard is trying to do. So very similar to Assassination, this one will just have to wait for Sims to catch up. I am hoping, but I am not going to hold my breath for Brigand's Blitz to finally become decent. Then for Subtlety, we have a pretty major change. We have Blade in the Shadows, which increases the damage of our Shadow Strikes with a stacking effect for a minute-long cooldown. Damage reduced by 25%. Now this actually kind of sucks. When it comes to PvE, this has been the best trait for Subtlety to play with. And this trait has been nerfed for PvE as well. For PvP, it doesn't seem that there's a different tooltip, so for PvP it felt like it was necessary to play Blade in the Shadows. So let's talk a bit about how this is going to affect you. It feels that this trait has been necessary in any of the single target encounters for a lot of Subtlety rogues, and it has been such a good trait that double stacking this trait was definitely worth it. And it is seen in WoW logs for any kind of single target fight. This trait, the more you can stack of it, the more damage you're able to put out. Because of the way Subtlety rogues can trade themselves and talent themselves, we don't really have the extra damage increase from Shadow Dance, or we don't need to for single target damage. Shadow Strikes alone can make up a lot of our damage, and triple stacking this trade Blade in the Shadows with all the Shadow Strikes we'll be throwing out throughout the fight was huge. With this trait getting nerfed by 25%, it looks like we'll be looking for other avenues, and triple stacking or even double stacking Blade in the Shadows to some sense might not be the best way to go. Although there are other traits for us to take a look at in terms of what is viable. For example, the trait of inevitability doesn't quite increase the damage of our shadow strikes as much, but it does have a different effect of increase the damage of backstab and shadow strikes. So whenever you're not shadow striking, you can backstab, and that's where you'll make up some of that damage, but it will also extend the duration of Symbols of Death, which kind of makes us juggle things around. So with this being said, we might have to start trading into this trait or start looking for other avenues altogether. But so far, it doesn't really look like it is going to be a good run for Subtlety with this nerf. Not too happy about it, but I guess I can kind of understand since it is a trait that everybody uses. For PvP, however, it'll basically mean that you will not need a Blade in the Shadows, since this trait on its own is not quite as necessary. Then we got an awesome update to the Subtlety trait of the first dance. It now grants 2 stacks of critical strike bonus when activated, but the critical strike bonus is reduced by 25%. I've always said this before, that the first dance was very difficult and very kind of confusing to work with, because in terms of lining up your shadow dance with an ability that you would want to crit, it was very difficult to line up and eviscerate, especially in PvP. It meant that you had to use your Shadow Dance in a very awkward situation, and you kind of had to get common points ahead of time. Even though with Shadow Dance you can get your cheap shots and Shadow Strikes, which generates common points necessary for you to get your Eviscerate in. This definitely alleviates the playstyle and the necessity for you to be able to generate extra common points. It does have the reduction in crit, but it does allow 2 abilities to have an increased critical strike chance, and it only works with abilities like Eviscerate, Shadow Strike, and Shuriken Storm. I think this is a much better change to this trait. I don't think it'll make it the best one by far. It only increases the chance for an ability to be crit without a guaranteed direct damage increase. But I do like the flexibility the Blizzard is thrown into the trait of First Dance. I'm actually very happy that they made this kind of change, and it makes sense from this perspective. At least it's one of the few traits that I'm pretty happy about in terms of the changes, but not really sure about the rest of them. I will leave a link down below for you guys to check out some of the other traits in case there's any updates with a Wowhead article. So be sure to check it out as of Tuesday today on US, or I guess today on EU, so you know what's coming for you tomorrow, if there is any more changes happening. And of course you can check out some of the other classes you guys might be playing right now. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed. Overall, I think these changes are, I'm not really sure how to feel about them. I like the change to Outlaw, and I'm confused about changes to Assassination. I like and hate the changes to Subtlety so far, but it does seem like Blizzard is trying to balance out these traits so it doesn't feel like you need certain Azerite pieces whatsoever, which I kind of like, but I kind of don't. I am somebody who likes to min-max my gear, and I do like to farm pieces over and over and over until that perfect right combo, but I guess Blizzard does want to make it as casual friendly as possible, so I can understand them on that side. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video.